Hello. Okay. My name is Kakadusina in my language. It's pretty much the only word I know besides Oki. It means star chief. It was given to me in a beaver bundle opening ceremony in 2012. I was born in Calgary in 1969. I didn't go to residential school, but I'm a survivor, an intergenerational survivor. Many of my relatives went to residential school, my birth mother and her sister. And at the time, my mother didn't feel like she could give me a life. And she wanted me to have a chance at a better life than she thought she could provide. She gave me a great gift at birth. Beyond the life, she registered me with Reconnecting, which is our band. And 5 days later was the last time she saw me. I'll never know what happened in the next 18 months. I was a ward of the government. I have no memory of it, of course, and they don't tell the people who adopt you. But 18 months later, I was adopted into a very, very loving home. A single mother took me in. She had a daughter from her previous relationship. She had married a Cree man from Saddle Lake and had a daughter, but he was a violent drunk and she left him. So I grew up with a very small family, a mother and a sister, in Edmonton, on the streets of White Avenue, in Cardinal. I had a terrific upbringing. There was no abuse. There was all kinds of support. It was a very stable home. But the trauma, the intergenerational trauma had already occurred. And it was waiting for me. It was waiting. And when I was 15, it started to really affect me. By the time I was 15, my mom tells me a story of when I was 4 or 5, and she found me in the bathtub scrubbing my skin relentlessly. She asked me what I was doing, and I said, I don't want to be an Indian, I want to be white. By that age, I had already become ashamed of being an Indian. And by the time I was 15, I had spent 6 years living in Rocky Mountain House in the early 80s, small town, Alberta. It really teaches you what you're thought of in society. The jokes, every hour on that school bus is full of the jokes. We had an intramural team called the Wagon Burners at Pioneer Junior High School in Rocky. By the time I was 15, the shame had become anger. And my truth began at a pipe ceremony when I was 15. My mom took me, she knew that there was something wrong, and she took me to see a man. And we did a pipe ceremony. And that was the very first true cultural experience I had. The woman who raised me was well educated. She was a psychologist. She worked nearly her entire professional life with Aboriginal communities to help heal them. And she knew many of their ways, and she thought that it might help. And it was at that time that I received an eagle feather and a drum, a hand drum. I still have them. My life took a drastic turn. For the next, I guess, 5 years, 15 to 20, I was falling. But there was an amazing social network, social safety net that sort of caught me. It started with ADAC when I had to go to detox, and it carried on at residential treatment, Poundmaker's Lodge. There was AA meetings, Narcotics Anonymous meetings. See, I had ended up on the street. My mom couldn't deal with me anymore. And I was just in a tailspin of self-destruction. I was so angry, but there was nowhere for the anger to go. There was nowhere to be angry at. I knew nothing of my birth family at the time. But I felt, you know, if they couldn't take care of me, maybe they wanted a better life for me. Maybe they're dead. I didn't know. And the woman who adopted me provided a very good life. But none of that mattered, because what was taken from me was all of my family, all of my culture, all of my language. Everything that should have been my birthright was gone. And when I go and talk, you know, I talk now in schools, treatment centers, the Edmonton Young Offender Center, I give a talk there. And I get asked, you know, what's it like to be adopted? Do you think of every memory you've ever had with your family and try to forget it all, pretend it never happened? It's impossible to explain. But every time I give that talk, always someone comes up and says, that's my story, that happened to me too. And there's thousands and thousands of us. And the healing began, I guess, when I was 17, 18, 19. I was put in a hospital for 3 months. It's severe depression. I went through alcohol and drug abuse counseling and treatment. And 22 years ago, about 10 blocks from here, I met my wife of 22 years in a bar. And we started a family. And by this time I had begun to heal, so my truth and reconciliation began back then. And the reconciliation that helped me was reconciling myself, inside myself, who I was. It was a very long road, and it's still going. When I got through treatment and had a couple years sobriety, I moved to Victoria to go to university. My firstborn son gave me that purpose, that I had a purpose, somebody that I had to take care of. I grew up without a father, and that was one of the hardest things growing up. All my friends had fathers. And I made a promise to myself that if I ever had children, although I never planned on it, that they would never, ever be without their father. So when my first son was born, I decided I needed to educate myself. I dropped out of high school at the end of grade 10, a little bit into grade 11. The depression was so bad I couldn't even get out of bed. And this is, you know, people think, well, if you're adopted into a decent home and you're given a decent upbringing, you'll be fine. But it just isn't true. That intergenerational trauma is in your DNA, it's in your blood. It's innately in you. That quest for who you are. At Poundmaker's Lodge, spent 30 days at Poundmaker's Lodge. And I was like Indian 101. I didn't know many, many things, so many things, and I still don't know, but I was shown how to smudge. I was shown ceremony. And I saw Indians from all over this country there, all different ages. And that was when the shame started to leave me a little bit. And I thought, maybe, you know, maybe it's not so bad. And I went off to Victoria, and I took a degree in physics and astronomy. And how did I get there from falling out of school? You know, I failed out of math. It was people who encouraged me. That social safety net that saved me was followed up by people who encouraged me. My dream was to be a carpenter. And when I went to upgrading, I got really high marks in math and physics. And my physics teacher, he said, Rob, you try a science degree. You can always go and do carpentry. Just try it. So that encouragement was huge. And the work that I had to do on myself, the reconciliation. You know, we're talking about the teaching of wisdom here. The little tiny bits of wisdom that I gained through healing starts with gratitude. When I had nothing, I literally woke up on the street one day with nothing. I couldn't remember how I got there. I had no money, no friends left. I had absolutely nothing. But eventually I learned to be grateful for even that. Even your next breath, your next day is a gift. So that gratitude was the beginning. And forgiving myself and forgiving society for the situations that I had to deal with. Those two things lead to compassion. Compassion for myself, compassion for others. I went through so many years so angry. I didn't have any emotion. It was just anger. I didn't cry. I was never happy. It was all just anger. But that's not true anymore. In June of this year, I found my birth family, or they found me, because I was willing to go and tell my story. I was at the 40th anniversary of Old Sun College on my reserve. And I told my story, and my birth mother's sister was there, and she saw me. She recognized me. She could see the mannerisms. I looked exactly like her father. And it took 2 years before I was ready to call her back and learn who I really was. So 44 years have passed. But in those 44 years, in the last 15 years, I've had a very fulfilling life. Working as an astronomer, I've discovered 2 comets, a near-Earth asteroid. I work on a science team for the Canadian Space Agency. I build telescopes and computers. I write software to hunt for asteroids. And a good mentor of mine who encouraged me to do that, he's found over 700 asteroids, and he said, Rob, why don't we name one? Why don't we name one for your nation? And he gifted me that asteroid. And I wrote the citation, and there's a rock in space named Suksika. So to conclude, I just want to thank all of the people who encourage others, because it's that encouragement which led me forward. I couldn't do it myself. I had to work hard for where I got to, but it was that encouragement. And ceremony has become so important to me. I smudge all the time, every day now. And getting back, learning my family. I was sitting yesterday at a coffee table, a kitchen table in the home where my sister grew up. My birth mother was there, and her sister's daughters, and the grandchildren. And it was really one of the first times that I sat at around a table with all my blood relatives, and they were just telling stories about the family. People I don't know, but everyone was laughing, and we were eating bannock and drinking tea. I can't tell you how much it means. But if I can help other people reconnect with their family, that is my dream. I want to thank my wife of 22 years and my two beautiful sons who inspire me every day to go on. And this wonderful woman beside me who has supported me. She met me when I was 15. She's been my mentor for a very long time.